Sudden sadness can come without warning. Imagine you see a yellow door and suddenly remember something from a long time ago, or you hear a song playing in a restaurant and it's like you are back in the past. Even the smell of the food cooking outside can make you think of a meal you had a long time ago. In those moments, you might get quiet and start thinking about the past. You remember good times and feel a little sad for things you once had. We call this feeling nostalgia. It's like looking back with a happy, sad feeling. Think of it as a picture book in your mind. It's like a string that pulls at your heart, reminding you of old times. For some people, nostalgia is rare, like a visitor who comes and goes quickly. But for others, it's a feeling they know very well. Maybe they have lost a lot of things or people, or maybe they just like to remember the past. Sometimes, if their life now isn't very happy, they think a lot about the good old days. For these people, nostalgia is a familiar friend. Backward glances, even backward longings, have their good purposes in the lives of God's children. If we allow it, nostalgia itself can become a prophet of the Lord. But nostalgia can also take a darker turn, can tell a sadder tale. As the winds of memory blow from yesterday to today, they can carry a whisper barely heard but deeply felt. Your best days are behind you. A long time ago, the ancient Greeks talked about a golden age. They thought of it as a special time that was peaceful and happy, where everything was good. Many of us also think of the past like that. Even though we know it wasn't perfect, it seems to shine like gold in our memories. Inside our hearts, we have a picture of a happier time. We remember laughing when we were young, our first love, starting our big dreams, and when we were stronger and healthier. Back then, it seemed like there were no dark or sad times, or at least not the same ones we have now. It feels like we are living in a time that's not as special as old days. Like we are in the age of bronze or iron instead of gold. Today's world seems harder and less exciting. The golden times feel like they are over. Even people who are happy now might think that the past was better. They remember the sounds of their children who are grown up, love that they lost, and dreams that didn't come true. Just like autumn comes and leaves from the tree, the happiest days are in lives pass by and becomes memories. And what about the future? Many people believes in a life after this one where everything will be good forever. But for a lot of us, it's hard to see that future clearly. We remember the past better than we can think what's coming next. People think heaven will be a wonderful place and seeing Jesus will make all the sadness go away. But right now, what we remember and miss from the past feel more important than what might happen in the future. Nostalgia sometimes makes us think sad thoughts, but there is another important idea to remember. It's like a quote from a wise book called Ecclesiastes. Don't ask why the old days were better than now. That's not a wise question. If we let nostalgia control us, we might start believing that things were always better in the past. And that's not always true. Nostalgia might make us think our best days are over, but being wise means understanding that good days can still be ahead of us. When wise people think about the past, they remember lots of good times, maybe even amazing times, like David, a person from a long time ago. They remember the great things God has done. There are so many good stories from the past, like chapters in a book written by God. God knows how to make really good stories, but even with all the great things from the past, sometimes what we remember isn't exactly how things were. Our memories don't always tell the true story of what happened. They can be like historians who pick certain things to focus on, and sometimes they even change or add details. For example, think about a story from long ago when the Israelites were traveling through the desert. They remembered their time in Egypt like this. We wish we had meat to eat. We remember eating fish for free in Egypt and all the good vegetables like cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions and garlic. But now all our strength is gone and all we have is this manna to eat. From the book of Numbers, chapter 11, verse 4 to 6 in the Bible. This shows how people sometimes remember the past as being better than it really was. Memory can be tricky and sometimes not so truthful. It can tell the truth but also make things up. It can be a good storyteller and also tell lies. Think about Egypt, where people were once slaves, where they worked hard for Pharaoh and had a tough life. But when remembering, they thought of it as a nice place, like an oasis made by the Lord. When we are upset or unhappy, our minds might remember only the good parts, like the tasty melons, and forget all the hard times. We might not think about the past in such a big way. Remember, good friend, that even the best times in the past had both good and bad things, like flowers and thorns. If we could go back in time, we would find lots of nice things, maybe even more than we have now. But we wouldn't find everything we are hoping for. The feeling of nostalgia, wanting to go back, takes us to a different place in our thoughts. If the past isn't always as we remember it, we might wonder if the present is better than we think. Could looking back too much make us miss the good things we have right now? Even if our days now seem less bright compared to the past, we are still under the care of the Father of lights, who doesn't change like the shifting shadows. As said in James chapter 1 verse 17 in Bible, all the great things from the past were gifts from Him, and even though a lot of time has passed, He is still giving us things. The gifts we get now might be different from before, but He hasn't stopped giving us. Take a moment to look around and really think about things. Remember the story of Elisha's servant who asked to see things differently. Even if your life feels tough, aren't there also good parts? Hasn't God given you things to be happy about even in hard times? Maybe you have simple joys in everyday life or a way to help others, even if it seems small. Hasn't He given you His words and a community of people to share with? But even more important than all of God's gift, hasn't He given you Himself? If you feel like you are in a tough, lonely place, remember how God guided people in the past with a pillar of fire and cloud. Just like Jesus said, I am with you always, from Matthew chapter 28 verse 20 in the Bible. This promise includes today, not just the past. John Newton, a pastor from long ago, once wrote to a woman who had just lost her husband. He said, even if everything else goes away, God is always there, full of love and never stop giving. All the happiness you got from your loved one came from God, and He can still bring you comfort. In our faith, comfort doesn't just come from a place or a time, but from God. Even though life and we ourselves change over time, God doesn't change. He is always there for us, like a safe place to be, and His never-ending support, as said in Deuteronomy chapter 33 verse 27 in the Bible. All the happiness you got from your loved. If you feel like you are in a tough place, that even the best, we might not think about the past in such a way.